Hello and welcome to my channel. Hi, I'm Wendy J. Haney, and today I'm going to go over with you the basics of doing machine embroidery applique. I'm not going to get into the gory details of stabilizer and thread choices and blah, 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 blah with all that stuff, but I want you to know and be comfortable with downloading an applique, a machine embroidery applique design, and understanding how to use it. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I was fine on hooping and doing my embroidery, and then I wanted to try this applique, and I downloaded the file and went, I don't get it. And I had thought that, I was going to need to have something that was going to trim around my applique images. So I actually bought a Cricut that was going to be able to cut around my applique designs. I thought I was going to need to do that in order to make this work. Nope, no need for special cutting. So I'm going to show you how easy it is because applique is really, really fun. I love doing it for baby quilts, and I've got some onesies because everybody keeps having babies, and I'd really like to try an applique on that. So stick with me here. I'm going to show you the basics of using a file and understanding how it works with machine embroidery. To follow along with me, we're going to make this Portuguese water dog. This pattern is free. I love patterns by designs by JuJu.com. So if you go there, the link is here, and I'll put it in the description as well, directly to this pattern. They have this free pattern for you to download. So you can download it. It comes in all sorts of formats and a variety of sizes. So even if you don't have, even if your embroidery machine does just smaller designs, there's a 4x4 available for you to follow along. So pick whatever size you want. There we go. I'm going to have fun with this. That was my sample I did to get this going, because that's the other thing I highly recommend. When you first start, well, actually, not even when you first start doing this, I always do a sample on scrap fabric using my scraps before I ever do this on something that really matters, such as a quilt block or a onesie. What you're gonna need is, your embroidery hoop and stabilizer. You pick out what you like. You might be looking at mine and going, it's kind of an interesting hoop. I run on all baby lock machines, but I've discovered these Durkee hoops, which need a stick-on stabilizer. The stabilizer sticks on the back, and then you just stick your fabric on the top. I'm in love with them. Tricky thing is always finding the right stabilizer that is a stick-on. Right now, this is the Filmoplast that comes from Durkee. So if you're wondering why mine looks so different, that's it. I have my background fabric already stuck on my stabilizer in my hoop. We're good. I need a background fabric for the dog. We're gonna go fun. I picked out some scraps from my scrap bin. I picked out a blue for the background of the dog, and I picked out a tone-on-tone for the chest and the paws. Okay, the other things you're going to need are scissors. As I mentioned, I did this video twice because I didn't like the first one. When I first started thinking about doing machine applique, I thought you needed a machine to cut things out ahead of time so that, I couldn't figure out how they were going to do this. I figured, I got to have a machine that cuts out my design perfectly, just a little bit bigger, so then they applique over it. So I bought a Cricut to do it. Nope. But you will need scissors. I recently bought these applique scissors. What are they? They are from Quilters Select Wave Applique Scissors. It's supposed to help you cut around and not cut your background fabric. Oops, done that before, and that stinks. I'm not 100% sure I'm in love with them. Just tried them today, but we'll see. They come in handy as a starting point, but I still love my Tooltron scissors. They are fantastic for doing the final trimming around and make sure I'm getting really close. And you'll see that as we get into the video. Some people like spray adhesive. So when we're putting our fabric on to stitch around it, some people like spray adhesive. I am not a fan of spray adhesives in the least, but every once in a while, a little glue stick goes a long way. So otherwise, sometimes it's just handy to get a little painter's tape out and tape around your edges to hold things in place. And this is not incredibly sticky, unlike masking tape. So this is a staple in my quilt factory. And I think, oh, geez, I forgot this the first time I did the video, which is why I'm running it a second time. We need our thread. Yep. I am not using the threads that are in the pattern because I'm going with blue fabric, so I need to pick out a pretty blue. But I do have a black for the nose and eyes and things, and a pink for the tongue, and a white for around the chest and the feet. And I am going to show you pretty soon with the file how the rest of it works in regards to that. I think that is all you need to get started. Watch the video all the way through or follow along as I go through it. Here is a JPEG.jpg file that is in the set of files that you can download from Designs by JuJu for this design. The JPEG file is usually the one, or sometimes it's a PDF. It depends on the designer. For Designs by JuJu, it's the .jpg file. It is what gives you the colors and a picture of your design. As you can see here, the picture does not show you where you need to have fabric. And that's where it's really handy to sometimes go to the website and look at it. Designs by JuJu, so you can actually see where we're at. Here's the Designs by JuJu, and we're going to go to Embroidery Designs. Free Designs. And it's this first one here. So there, you can look at the design and go, oh, I see. There's two fabrics. That is really the way to know how many fabrics you need, is look at that. Then we're going to flip back over to our JPG file. And this is what totally confused me. All the different colors, we keep going from light pink to dark pink to light pink to dark pink. Oh, and then we go to really dark. And this one, I go, I'm going to make that bigger. There we go. So for this one, I go, oh, well, that's the nose. I can tell that. Yeah, we need pink for the nose. Oh, and we need black for the eyes. I'm sorry, we need pink for the tongue, not the nose. Pink for the tongue. They've got black for the nose and the eyes. And then we go down here and go, oh, well, yeah, look, that's really heavy outline. That's the dark around the doggy. So there's what you need to pay attention to. These here, these really heavy ones, that is your satin stitch around your fabric. That's the final stitching that is going to be visible. What is up here in these four, these are what we call tack down or outline stitches. And this is the first one. This stitches a quick, simple stitch in an outline stitch that shows you where the fabric needs to cover. Your fabric does not need to be the exact size of that, but it needs to cover it. So this helps you make sure you have a piece of fabric that is large enough to cover what you need. And then you put that down and you go to the machine and it stitches it. And then, I take that back. You go to the machine with just your background fabric and it stitches the outline. You put the fabric on top of it. Then the next one is tacking. It's your tack down stitch. It's tacking down that fabric. And then in this case, it's also doing another outline stitch for the chest, showing you where that white fabric goes. And then for whatever reason, and sometimes it's just a copy paste error thing, simplification with the designer, she's got that here as well. So we've got an outline stitch, tack down stitches, outline for your white, and tack down for your white. All these colors, you're going, wow, do I really need to use all those colors? No, you don't. Your tack down and your outline stitch colors are irrelevant. But the designer has to put a color, a different color rotating back and forth in their design so that your sewing machine knows to stop. And it says, oh, you need to switch colors, so I'm stopping, which is when you do your next step. And I'm going to walk you through doing that. Once you understand how this works, you go, okay, outline, tack down, outline, tack down. Ah, this is my first real color that somebody's going to see. So in my opinion, I don't care what colors these are. Put this color in your sewing machine. And you can use the same color, the same thread. You do not need to be switching colors for each of these steps. You put in the pink, you do all these, then it does your tongue, and then you need to change your colors because the rest of these colors all matter. They're visible. Now, with that said, that is this pattern. But once you understand how this works, you'll be in a better position to open any applique file and get the gist of it. Because with other files, you might have a lot of tack down, whatever, and then, oh, I need to get the satin stitch done, and maybe we have a few more tack downs. It just depends on how complicated the applique is and how the designer did it. Okay, I hope that helps you get a sense, because when I got this, I'm like, what the heck's with the color changes? And what are these? Now you know, so now we're going to go get her done. I have done my first step in the embroidery pattern. So that was this one. And it did the outline. I mentioned that you could start with the pink, the color that you want to use for the tongue. I opted to go ahead and put in black because I wanted to make it very clear to you in this video, the outline. And I was afraid the pink wasn't going to be dark enough on this light fabric. So there we go. The first thing that was stitched is an outline of the dog. So this is where your dog fabric needs to go. And yes, I'm having some fun. And I found this blue that is wide enough, and it's way more length than I need. So usually what I do is I come down here to the bottom and go, okay, don't cut it too short. You want to give yourself enough room. Makes it easier to trim. But then I don't want to have this hanging out on the embroidery machine. So I come up here and I go, oh, yeah, if I cut it where it's about the top of my hoop there, I'm going to just do that. Oh, and this is a really crappy stabilizer paper cutter. You need to find the other one. I've already pressed my fabric. It is ready to go. You might want to use a stabilizer on it. I'm sorry, not a stabilizer. Fiddlesticks. Sometimes the words just like disappear. Starch. It started with S, right? A spray starch on it. I usually use Best Press, but if you're a person that wants a little heavier starch, go for it. Use what you like. And I just set it on there. Now, with that said, that's a pretty good sized piece of fabric. So in this case, let's oh my gosh, that top is on good. And we're gonna use just a little bit of glue stick. And instead of putting it on my fabric and getting it everywhere I don't need it, I just put it in the middle. Therefore, my needle is not going to hit it because I don't want to gunk up my needle. And I just, you know, like I said, I hate spray adhesive. And then we put it on here, just making sure that it completely covers all of the outline. There we go. Now we're ready to go back to the embroidery machine and do the next step. And in this case, there's no reason for you to change out your thread. I actually am going to. I'm now going to switch to the pink because the pink will be easier to see on my blue, I think, than my black. So there's the other situation. When you're talking about your tack down, stitch, be aware of what your fabric color is. If you've got black fabric, you don't want to use black thread for your tack down. Throw in white, something that's really easy for you to see. The outline and the tack down stitches are not going to be visible. So minimize your thread changes, but at the same time, use thread colors that make sense so that you can see them for your outline on your background fabric and your tack down, because you're going to need to see that tack down to know where to trim your fabric. Second step is done, and maybe I should have used black thread. There we go. I have a picture of it so you can see it. The tack down stitch for my blue fabric for my doggy was done. You'll discover the outline stitch they do once around. The tack down stitch, they go twice around. So it's more secure because it's very important. It's tacking down your fabric and you want it nice and secure because now we're going to lift this up and start trimming around it. And then in the middle, there was one outline for our white. And we're going to follow up with that next. Now, before moving on to the next step on the embroidery machine, you need to cut away all of this extra fabric around the tack down stitch. So we've got our little wave scissors. And this pattern, I'm going to say as we're trimming it up, it's a little more complicated to trim up. So maybe you want to find another applique pattern that has more straight lines and less little stuff. As far as a starting point, just a thought. But this one was free and it was easy to show you. So I generally keep, for the most part, it on my table. Get the scissors between the back and the design, and you're just going to trim around it. And I'm not going to make you watch me do the whole thing. And some of this, it's like, okay, that's a lot of extra that I don't need to be dealing with, so I just whack it off and get it out of the way. And then I go around and trim it all the way. Okay, I'm going to just do a little bit of this and then I'm going to show you something else. The thing, okay, that's good enough. So you're going to cut all the way around it. I feel that this scissors does not let me get as close to the stitching as I would like. You don't want to get into the stitches and cut them, obviously, nor do you want to cut the back by mistake. But you want this close enough so that when the satin stitches are done, there is no fabric sticking out. So what I did with this pattern is I started out and used this scissors all the way around. Then I came back with my Tooltron, and this one allows me to get a little closer around my design. And I like that better. And then you're going to have all these little threads all over the place that you're going, oh, geez, what a mess did I create? Especially when you do this final trimming. Yeah, this little spot in the corner here is being, yeah, a little bit of a pest. Just be careful. Like I said, don't trim, don't cut into your background. So now that you got all these fuzzies, guess what works really great for it? Ah, a little sticky roller. There we go, and gets it off your machine. Once you've trimmed all the way around outside of it, then, oh, what you need to be careful of is as you're doing this, I was doing it right there on the table. Sometimes I actually lift it up and hold it. You want to be very careful when you're doing that, not to be putting pressure on here and loosening your stabilizer, which would shift all of this, because that means if you start shifting the placement or loosening things up because you're holding this up and you've got fingers below it and you're putting pressure on it, you may shift the position of things. Therefore, when the machine comes to do the final stitches, things no longer line up because you've put pressure on the fabric and loosened it up. So be very careful about that as well. Okay, we're going to pretend that I've trimmed all the way around it. I will do that. Then I need a white fabric in here. And sometimes what I do is I grab a ruler and go, oh, let's see. Oh, it's less than, it's 1.5 inches by 2 inches. So I go to my 2-inch strip scrap bin, and I know that if I find a 2-inch piece in there that the color works for me, it will fit. I've got this, it's tone on tone. I can't tell which is right or wrong. It really doesn't matter. So I can put that right over there. And where's my glue stick? In this regard, I can just put a little glue there in the middle. This fits perfectly, and I'm going to put that over it. What we've noticed, if you look at your pattern, just finished step number 2. Step number 3 is actually, it's kind of a duplicate, and I'll know when I stitch it for sure. My guess is it's doing another outline of this, and then it's going to do another outline of this, and it's going to do an outline of your feet here that you need. So I would say be very careful with your placement of this piece of fabric so it's not in the way of where it's going to stitch down here. And when I get there, I'll be able to tell you in this design whether she's doing an actual tack down here or just another outline. I am going to go finish trimming around my edges, and then I'm going to put a little glue stick here in the middle and put my white on there, and I'm going to go into the sewing machine and do the next step. As I suspected, this step was really an outline step for the feet and the chest. So her pattern actually has an outline stitch for the chest twice. That's okay, no big deal. But what it means is when you do this step, you're going to discover that it's going around those edges only once. That means this is not ready for you to trim it, because the next step is going to be doing the tack down. So that's all right. We got that in there ahead of time. So these are the things that you're going to need to pay attention to, especially when you're doing that first sample to understand the pattern. Let's face it, it's programming involved in building out this design. And sometimes there's, oh yeah, I could have done that. But you know what? It's not a problem, so the designer leaves it in and it still works. So try things out first. Now, I do have that in there already, but now we need the feet. We need his white feet. Yes, I could do 2 separate pieces of fabric, but that seems really kind of silly. And I have a piece here that'll work just fine. Okay, is it gonna, yeah, it's gonna fit, but I don't want to have all this hanging there. Yeah, so we're gonna just do this. I'm actually gonna cut it a little more. Okay, there we go. So now I'm gonna put a little glue right in the middle, and I'm gonna stick on the feet, making sure I'm not up close to the edge. And now we're going to go, so this time it is going to double stitch around the feet, and it's going to double stitch around here, that being the tack down stitches for both of these. Therefore, when we're done with this step, we're ready to trim around both of them. So at this point, do not trim around that because that's just an outline stitch based on how she did the pattern. Okay, we're getting closer to the fun part and seeing it finished. I was right that the tack down occurred in this step. So now we have our 2 feet tacked down and the chest. So now we're ready to trim this one up. So once again, you just get out your scissors and you trim around all of this and get that done, get it trimmed up. I'm not gonna make you sit here and watch me trim this up. I'll trim those up. Usually what I do in this case is I get there in the middle and I find it easier if I just, and that's where these are kind of handy in the fact that you can get under there. There we go. And I get those split up. I find that easier to work with and then trim around those. I am going to go get those trimmed up and then we're ready for the satin stitch. So the next stitch is to sew on the nose. So now in this step, it's very, very important I put the right color in for, I'm sorry, I keep saying nose, tongue. They look like the same, a pink nose, a pink tongue. No, doggy has a black nose. So the pink tongue is the next stitch, and that's going to be important. So the next stitches in the design are going to be the mouth, the accent, the colors that are important that you choose for your fabric, and then the satin stitches around everything. Let's see how it goes out. Gets done. Is this guy gonna be cute or what? He's just kind of pretty adorable, I think. Yeah, what fun. I thought blue would be fun for a water dog, a Portuguese water dog. Yeah, especially with baby stuff. You can do anything you want. I had finished cutting out around the edges of the white fabric, and then we stitched the nose. Oh my gosh. Well, at least I'm consistent through the whole video. The tongue. We stitched the tongue in pink, and then the next step was the black nose and eyes, and then some accents for the paws. Now, the last 2 steps are the dark around the doggy, and then the white around the paws. I chose a pretty electric blue thread to be used for my water dog. So I'm going to go and get that done. And there you have it. We are done. Isn't he just adorable? It's so much fun with applique to change the colors up and go, okay, traditional. You got a dog and it's black or it's gray or whatever, and do traditional colors, or really do something fun with it. I love applique for baby stuff, particularly. And yeah, so this was really fun. Once you get and understand the outline stitch and the lockdown stitch and understanding what those are and how they work in your design, you're going to be able to handle pretty much any applique when you get the pattern and put it on your embroidery machine. And once you get all that done, then it's just satin stitch. Now, if you're trimming and all of a sudden, oops, you cut into the lockdown stitch a bit, don't worry. More than likely, unless you like really butchered it, the satin stitch that comes around later is going to get it covered and it won't be a problem. So don't toss it right away. It probably can be saved. And there we have it. I'm going to take this and throw this in the pile of appliques that I've created as I test things, because one never knows what one could do with them in the future. As a friend said, it really seems a shame to waste them when you're trying and you're testing. Throw them in a pile. Someday they'll go together with something. I hope you found that helpful and you're much more excited and feel capable of tackling a machine embroidery applique. Enjoy, take care, and thank you so much for watching.